afternoon are the husband and wife, bridge teaching team of Ginny and Jeff Schuett. Ginny was asked to start teaching at a community center and got involved with teaching and became a member of ABTA. I think she's held every position in the organization. She and Jeff have both won multiple awards. They travel and teach on cruise ships and are wonderful teachers. So here are Jeff and Ginny Schuett for their presentation for us.
Good afternoon, welcome. She told me last night, why don't you just do it? She wouldn't even come up and stand up here with me, but later on she will. So, for those of you who have been members for a few years, in Toronto in 2017, we did a similar presentation on a different topic, totally different, on card combinations. And we thought that was actually a bit of a hole in most people's teaching. Since then, we've had some very good responses, and a few of you have said you've run classes and seminars based on it, and I think it's a very important part of people's education in bridge, and unless you have really solid card sense, it's not intuitive to most. Today, we thought we'd do a new one that we put together in May of this year, and we did for our students in May of this year. We could have called it Bridge Judgment, Bridge Hand Evaluation, all that kind of stuff, but I wanted it to focus on bidding and the implications of fits, non-fits, where your honors are located. Excuse me. And so we decided on the title, Improving Your Bidding Decisions. And the material that we did in the session is contained in what you have in front of you in the little scroll-bound thing that we put together. There's a little bit more at the end, the same material that we added the last time, which is sort of just a punch list of things if you want to try doing these kind of what I would call half-day seminars. They really last about the same length as a bridge game. We do them for 3.5 hours on a Sunday afternoon in a really nice venue. The typical venue we use is a Jewish community room, which has tall glass windows onto an open tree area. It's really nice. But people love it, and it's one day. A lot of people think they actually know a lot about bridge and they refuse to come to a series of classes, but one day they can handle, especially when their husband's watching television, football usually in the fall. So we usually do one in the spring and one in the fall, and we get anywhere from 80 to 120 people. And it's quite popular, and it's become a real nice thing for us. And for those of you that actually like to raise a little money once in a while, it's pretty profitable. We usually charge $50. The unfortunate part for the way I feel about things is that the food becomes overwhelming. And so we have lunch and cheese and fresh fruit, and you can only imagine. I think people should actually come for the bridge, but I'm old-fashioned, so. At any rate, these are all designed, I call them for intermediate players who are interested in playing duplicate or already do. And I teach a series of classes on Mondays and Thursdays for the same audience. A lot of those same people come, even though there's an overlap with what I'm teaching. So, just to go over what you have in front of you, there's a little table of contents, second page in. And the main, what I would call the body of narrative or whatever you want to call it, Ginny and I write together, and it just kind of goes with some of the topics that we thought made sense in this area. And it basically can be divided sort of in half, and openers' decisions and responders' decisions. And in many of our lessons, we use boards, but in this lesson, because it's all bidding oriented, and actually probably 2/3 of the seminars we've done lately, we've actually used bidding sheets instead. And it's way easier for us in terms of presentation. We don't have to prepare a whole lot of pre-built boards. And it's more timely, because if we play a board, they're sort of focused on play and defense when we're talking about bidding mostly, and you get kind of sidetracked on side issues. So whenever we do a bidding-focused session and seminar, we typically use bidding sheets rather than boards. For this particular session, we tried to do both, and we simply had no time for the boards. So we cut short the sheets, and we did play 4 of the 8 boards we had prepared. People like to play cards with cards in their hands, but time-wise, it really is more efficient to use the bidding sheets. And so we're actually going to do that today. So just to reiterate what Mike said, the person that's going to be your partner is kitty corner across the table, not the one across the table from you. Because otherwise you end up talking across purposes. So at least you can talk quietly to the other person in the kitty corner, and it actually works out well. So there's some handouts. We sort of include them in a old-fashioned pocket folder, and we stick those in the pocket because if somebody wants to actually hand their partner something, one topic specific, they can just hand them that sheet instead of the whole shebang. And so I call those one-page handouts, which we would typically use in a 1.5 or 2 hour lesson. And so I think they complement what we're doing. Some would say it repeats, whatever. So there's about 6 of those kinds of single-page handouts. Then there's the practice bidding sheets. We used 2 sheets of 12 hands, and we're going to try to bid around half of them today together with you. And then we'll talk about the concepts of each hand. And then at the back, as I said, there's a little section on issues in running a seminar like these, and then the topics that we've chosen to run. And we've been doing it for about 10, 12 years now. And usually, like I said, two or three a year. Okay, so I decided kind of at the last minute to put these little colored things on, and they aren't streamers, but when we kind of shift to a different part of the material, if you want to follow, it'll be easy for you to jump to it. So the green tab is the beginning of the handouts. We're not really going to look there, but you certainly can if you'd like. The yellow one is the practice sheets. I also included 2 separate sheets, which you can use today, so that you don't have to write in your folder and then want to try to erase it if you want to use it, etc. So there's 2 in the back of your folder that you can use today to bid with your partner. So because one of you is north and one of you is south, we put them back to back so you couldn't cheat without it being obvious. And so there's first 12 and then there's 13 through 24. So let's begin. I wanted to encourage you. I'm not about to read this to you, but I am going to focus on a few important issues, I think. And it never ceases to amaze me. People come to sessions that have a specific focus, and afterwards they come up and they say, I never expected to learn about this or that, which had little to do with the subject, main subject of the session. So if you have questions, feel free. I'm not against answering questions. We can't go down the road. We don't have that much time. And the time allotted is less than half of what we would do to do this session. But I'm not going to dwell on most of the teaching aspects because hopefully they're not new except for one specific area that might be to many of you.
Jeff,
So, yes.
sometimes you get an echo. Maybe you could step back just a couple inches or something.
Okay. All right. One of the things we try to tell people is they don't, at least in our game, we have not been vigorous about talking people into completing convention cards. And I try to emphasize it as much as I can. I only run 1 of 5 games at our area half the time. So, but one of the things that I think is important is that becomes a means to keep track of the agreements that you and your partner have. And I personally, with some of my partners that I casually play with, I write little notes inside of that card. And so there's a little section on partnership issues, and I think you need to have an idea, or at least a mental idea, about whether your partner is reasonably aggressive, terribly aggressive, extremely aggressive, or conservative. Because most of us are somewhere in the aggressive to insanely aggressive mode most of the time. But, you know, sometimes we play with different partners and you have to play a different role depending on what your partner is. So I'm not going to go over the rule of 20. Most of you know that, and it's outlined here with some examples. What I wanted to talk about is the material starting on page 3, which is about opening no trump with some slightly off-shaped hands.
Back up a little bit.
I do mini lessons quite often on in our limited games, and frequently people will come up and ask me after the game about troublesome hands, rebid problem hands, and invariably, probably 60% of the time, it relates to these types of hands. So you don't have the classic no trump distribution of 4-3-3-3, 4-4-3-2, or 5-3-3-2, but you've got the semi-balanced distributions of 5-4-2-2 or 6-3-2-2. And many of those hands, without good suits in the longer suits and strong doubletons, are much better bid, not by emphasizing your long suits, but by just opening a no trump. So there's a bunch of examples on the middle of page 3. At the session, we would typically have a suited board in the middle of the table, and we'd go through and build these hands and let them see them at their table. And but for purposes of not having to lead you through that exercise, many of the things that we felt were important are outlined on many of these. Both the positives in terms of opening a no trump with the first 3. Of course, one of the most frequent bridge questions any of us bridge instructors have to deal with is, you know, you have a 5-card major, 15 to 17, what do you open? Well, depends. So then you start going down the road of what depends means. And so this addresses some of those issues. And, you know, a 6-card bad minor, should I open a bad minor and jump to 3? No, not usually. It's much better opening a no trump, etc. So these hands cover many of those ideas and subjects, and at the table we talk about them in a more elaborate way. But the important thing is to tell them that, you know, you got to loosen up a little bit. We have to teach you those 3 classic distributions to get you going in bridge, but there are many hands that vary from that and are best bid by using that same bid and the resulting tools you get to use of statement transfers and all the other weapons we have over no trump. One of the reasons why we stress them so much is that they come up with great frequency, and you can best gauge where you belong on those types of hands. So I tell people all the time, don't look for reasons not to open no trump. Embrace it and look for as many hands as you can to open no trump in your partner, and you will bid more accurately more often than you can ever imagine. So the more difficult thing is when you're thinking about opening 2 no trump, and then we have issues about singleton honors. I'm not personally a big fan of suggesting singleton honors with 1 no trump. I tell my students when they ask me that question, since the XCBL changed the rules 3 years ago or so, I personally would probably not do it unless I had a singleton honor and a minor, because there's too much chance your partner's going to transfer into a major and drop you, and there you are in your 5-1-5. But a minor, they'll always have 6 in theory when they transfer you to that minor or bid the minor. And so you've got some extra protection against that coming back to haunt you. But opening 2 no trump, and I really kind of like the comment that was made, I think, when there was some writings about the change in the rules. And they said they were just sort of making it the bridge population aware of what bridge experts have been doing for years. And there's a story about, you know, Max Schuett getting up in front of a group like this and talking about their tendencies, and somebody presented with a hand and said, the king of whatever. They said, what do you open? He said, 2 no trump. What's the problem? So it's interesting. The game is fascinating. So on that page, there's a number of issues about opening to no trump, either upgrading your hand based on a 5-card suit, looking at all of those many tennises you have, and whether you should, maybe with 19 points in a 5-card major, but tennis is in every position, do something else, like opening 2-no. There's a lot of protection, and I try to emphasize with my students as much as possible that having the strong hand declare is a huge advantage. And you will find yourself making more tricks than you'll ever imagine if you angle toward that happening more often than not. And on all those 19-point hands, when you're opening and raising your partner's 1-no trump to 3-no trump, you might have considered, I'm not saying everyone, but you might have considered on many of them opening 2-no trump yourself and end up with a strong hand playing. I can't tell you how many hands I've watched, and I'm sure you too, where the King-Jack Doubleton gets led through and bad guess turns into down many when you just had 9 tricks with the lead coming into that holding. We talk a fair amount about opening 2 clubs. I'm sure with your students you also have an issue about, there's certain of them like to open every hand of over 19 or 20 points, 2 clubs, because they think their partner's going to pass all the time with a wonderful hand that's going to be at least game and maybe even more. I don't see that happens too often, but they think so. And so we put in a section about whether to open 2 clubs or not. And there's a lot of this material on page 5 is originated from Karen Walker. For those of you that have, I'm sure you've seen her articles in the bulletin. But she has a good website that she's had publicly available for probably 35 years. And a lot of very good, thoughtful material about teaching bridge. She's not in a major metropolitan area. She's in Champaign, Illinois, but she's a very fine player and a good teacher, good thought leader, if you will, about ideas about bridge. So we felt that we wanted to include 2 clubs, even though it really wasn't the primary focus of what we were talking about, but we wanted to get more people sort of attuned to how best to bid. So, what we would like to do, and we wanted to involve you personally with the experience of what this is like, to see whether you feel it would work with your people and your students. So what we would like you to do, and as I mentioned, we're going to bid kitty corner, so if you happen to be in the wrong seat, feel free to move. There's a bidding sheet that says practice sheet number 1, or decisions practice number 1. For my feeling, I think whoever's sitting, well, my suggestion when somebody asked me an hour ago was, this wall, the welcome, is north, and the other side south. So my suggestion is that north uses the north hands, south uses the south hands, and the person that's your partner sitting the opposite direction, east-west, uses the opposite north or south. And what I would like to suggest is that you actually take these sheets, the loose ones, and bid the first 6 hands, 1 through 6. It's on the sheet. So the first 3 hands, you have to make note, the first 3 hands, north is the dealer, 4 through 6, south is the dealer. So we get everybody to get an idea about making some decisions based on the hands in question. Yes? Hand 1, look at the big letters at the top of the sheet. One of you should have the sheet on the side that says north hands. The other one should turn it over and use the south hands. These are partners. So, you should only have sheet 1 out now. Sheet 1 only. One of you should have it as north. The partner should have it on the south side. You're bidding these together. 1 heart, 1 spade, 2 no trump, etc. You're bidding them, you should write the bids to the right of the hand. And as soon as you finish, try to resist that temptation to discuss it and move on to the next hand, just like in a bridge game. Don't discuss the first hand until you finish the last hand.
Is there anybody in here that does not have a partner to bid with? I think I
Try the first 6 hands. We'll give you about 15 minutes or so. Yes. Ginny. Correct. She bids the north hands and you bid the south hands. Correct. You're her partner. You only get to look at your own hand. Yes. Quick question. Let's call it match points. Let's try match points. So bid hands 1 through 6 on practice number 1. Good luck. Yes, only your own.
And we are playing 2 over 1?
Yeah.
All right, I'm bidding 1 no.
I'm bidding 3. Okay, did you get anything? Let's go out and get you something, okay?
Everybody done? We ready to talk about it? Okay, so the way we do this is that Ginny is one of you and I am the other. So we do these seminars together. We don't usually teach most of our other classes together, but we do these together. And so basically our idea is to give our thought process as we bid a hand. And it helps them to understand what they should be thinking about because, as you well know, intermediate players are like deers in with headlights on, and it becomes difficult. And so if you just walk through the process, it really helps them. And so that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to be north, and Ginny's going to be south. So hand 1, I am passing.
Yes, we give you a hand and pass. Okay, again, all of these hands, the opponents are not bidding, it's just you and your partner. So it's to me, and I decide, I've got an opening hand, I open 1 club.
And I'm going to bid 2 no trump. Hand 1.
Hand 1.
North has 12 high card points at 4, 3, 3, 3, and 8 losers, and I'm passing. 12. 8 losers. 8 losers, 4, 3, 3, bad spots. It has every indicator to be conservative and pass.
Now, some of you may have opened, but that's fine. That's what we're doing with our group back home. We're showing them that perhaps they should not have opened the hand, okay? It's all about opening and the first response by responder, which we'll get to in a second. But this is all about opening.
The minute you start teaching your students you can open some 12-point hands, they gravitate toward opening every 12-point hand. Just like when you tell them you can overcall some 8-point hands, they overcall every 8-point hand with 10-5th, and the 2 level. Vulnerable against not vulnerable. It doesn't matter. But the point is that there are limits to these bids. I will never forget Mike LaSalle on Facebook was commenting on a hand. He had 14 high card points, an ace king, empty 5th of diamonds. Right, he opened a spade. He said, I would not bid 2 diamonds. I personally don't believe it at the table, but he did say it in public. I would not overcall 2 diamonds. So there are some other hands, but, I forgot to say one important thing. When we started putting this together, we were going to do constructive bidding and competitive bidding together. This seminar would have lasted weeks. So we cut it down to constructive bidding only, which is this one. Our intent is to do one on competitive bidding a little bit down the road, maybe in the fall, but that's why there's no opposition bidding.
And this is only for first and second chair that we're talking about, because third and fourth chair lend themselves to a lot of different things to take into consideration. So once again, the bidding has been north passes. I, as south, open 1 club.
I bid 2 no trump.
My partner bids 2 no trump. I know he's inviting me. I but I'm 4-4-3-2, he doesn't have 4 spades, I have just my opening hand, and I'm passing. I am not going to carry on the 3-note trump.
And I bet you to say it'd be impossible to stop short of 3-note trump if North opens the bidding. And if you look at the hand, you have no hope of 3-note trump. 2-note trump is a challenge. 2-note trump is a challenge. 3-note trump is impossible. Even with some favorable indications, but it's just one of those things. You just can't make bids like that and survive it. So number 2, some of our students will be tempted to open 2 clubs because they have 9 tricks in their hand. But this is a 1-spade bid in my book.
Okay, whether you're playing 2-over-1 or standard, South should bid for the first time 1-note trump. If you're playing 2-over-1, that has to be, of course, forcing, and if you're not, it's standard. I'm bidding 1-note trump because, again, I have 10 points, but I don't have a fit with partner. I don't want to stretch this hand to say that I have a good 10, 11, 12-point hand if I'm not playing 2-over-1. I just want to see what partner Reed does. If he invites me, I certainly will go somewhere, but I just want to bid 1-note trump right now.
And I would tend to just rebid 4 spades. If you have 4 losers, your partner would have to cover 3 of them to consider slam. There will be some days they might have a stiff diamond or something in that indulgent spade, and you might do it, but I don't think most of the time you're going to have a slam.
How do you respond if I want to? So what are you doing after 4 spades?
Oh, I'm passing. I'm passing. After 4 spades, my partner, I'm
It might
passing.
be tempting to bid.
Wait, sorry, say that again.
I'm going to pass his 4 spade bid. I am not going to carry on.
It wouldn't be outrageous for South to bid, that's for sure. After all, if you made the ace king of hearts, the ace king of diamonds, you'd be, oh, you'd still be off the races. No.
Could you repeat the whole sequence?
Just 1 spade by North,
1-note trump by South.
4 spades. That's worth 2 and 2.
Number 3 is a little more complicated, so stay with us.
So hand 3, North only has 18 high card points, but you do have 9 tricks in your hand, and you do have enough defensive values to consider opening 2 clubs. And I think I would open 2 clubs at the table. If my suit was not so good, I probably wouldn't, or so long, certainly. But I think opening 2 clubs for intermediate players is a very reasonable decision on a hand like this. Getting to slam if you open 1 spade is not so easy, but getting to slam when your partner opens 2 clubs with 10 high card points is pretty straightforward, even for fairly conservative players. So if they have that mental idea that, well, partner has 22 high card points or something equivalent in trick taking, well, they certainly should consider slam. So I'm opening 2 clubs.
And no matter what system you're playing, South is going to bid 2 diamonds.
And North is bidding 2 spades.
And I look at my hand and I say, I've got 2 quick tricks, I've got a fit with partner. I'm going to make the 3 spade bid, which is more forward going to slam than jumping to 4 spades. 3 spades is much more encouraging.
As a teacher, I cannot emphasize enough, emphasizing this idea of fast arrival. It's really important. Yes? South should not be the one to take over. North could, but not South, because South has a 2 loser side suit in diamonds. So they should not be taking control. You should avoid that at all costs. So if that's something that your students don't grasp, you have to have a cubiting class. So, anyway, the start is 2 clubs, 2 diamonds, 2 spades, 3 spades, and as North, I would cubit 4 clubs. It would be okay to bid 4-note trump. You don't have any flaws to your hand, but I personally would bid 4 clubs.
Plus, if you're giving a class of cubiting, here you go. So partner is interested in slam. I certainly am. I don't have control, first round control in diamonds. I do in hearts, so I'm going to bid 4 hearts.
And so I would bid for no trump. I play Roman key card with even my fairly low-level students that I play with. And I think there comes a time when you need to broach that subject with them, but it's important enough, I think you should do it.
Playing Roman key card, I'm bidding 5 clubs, which is 14. We play at 14:30. Some people play at 30-14, but whatever your flavor, we play at 14:30, so we're going to bid 5 clubs. I'm going to bid 5 clubs.
And so I'm bidding 6 bids. We're off the key card. Hand 4. South is the deal.
I get your deal. I have 19 high card points. If I'm an intermediate or low intermediate, I'm saying 19 points. I can't open anything but 1. But if you look at the 5 card suit and you look at the tennises, the king X and the ace queen, this is a 2-no trump opening bid. I feel. This is number 4. South is the dealer.
So my bid's pretty automatic, 3 no trump. But if you look at these 2 hands, if South opens a diamond and North bids a no trump, you've wrong-sided it. And in this hand, you'd at least get to game. But we've all had hands where we open a diamond, your partner bids a major, and you bid 2 no on 19, and your partner simply passes. They didn't like their 6 or 7 points. And it's just far better with a 5 card suit, a reasonable 5 card suit, and 19 and some tennis positions to just open 2 no and get it over with. Positionally, it's really a big difference.
Okay, number 5, I'm the dealer again, and if I count my points, I only have 10 high card points, but again, if you throw points out the window and you look at this hand as playing trick-taking ability for playing out the hand, I'm opening this bid 1 spade. This is number 5.
Number 5, right, South is the lead. So South opens 1 spade, and I would bid 2 diamonds, probably playing anything, standard or 2 over 1.
I'm not liking this hand anymore, but I opened my mouth, and so I've got to continue bidding, so I bid a gentle 2 spades.
And with a full opening bid, of course, I would bid 4 spades. I have to tell you, it's scary to me personally to look in the mirror and think I've been a member of the ACBL for 50 years now, but when I learned bridge, we would open this hand 2 spades every day of the week. I mean, there just was no appreciation of trick-taking ability, a little, I shouldn't say no, but little of trick-taking, appreciation of trick-taking ability, distribution on your side, second suits, etc., etc. We would just play 6 to 12, week 2 bids, and we'd open 2 spades and never think another minute about it. I'm not sure North would be bidding very often over 2 spades, but we would do it. But today, I think we appreciate that. For most of us, we play either like 5 to 9, 5 to 10, something like that for our week 2 bids, because 6 card suits and long suits and any favorable distribution in your side suits is really not a very good preempt. Preempts, of course, have gotten much more aggressive. 1 spade, 2 diamonds, 2 spades, 4 spades. 2 spades, 4 spades. So board 6, South is the dealer.
Let's see, I have 15 high card points. I'm 2, 4, 2, 5. If I open a club and my partner bids a spade, what's my rebid going to be? I'm not really strong enough to make a reverse. I've got a lot of problems if I open this hand a club, but I'm pretty close to being balanced. 5, 3, 3, 2. I could say I have a heart in with my diamonds. I'm opening this hand 1 no trump.
So as North, I have a 4 card major. I also have a double 10 in my hand, so I would be using Stamen. So 2 clubs.
Oh good, I hope we find our fit. 2 hearts.
And 3 no trump. Unlucky she didn't match my spades, although she can still have spades.
And I pass 3 no trump.
Some hands like this, you also should appreciate the fact that when the person contemplating opening a no trump like South When you have something like ace-10, doubleton, ace-jack, doubleton, those kinds of holdings are enormous when your partner has the complement jack-third or 10-third. You're gaining a trick almost always, but the lead coming through it, for instance, in spades, we have to change a lot of cards, but if a lead came through the ace-10 of spades and North had the jack-third, West might win the king or queen and clear the suit, and they have the whole rest of the suit coming. So positionally, opening a no trust with ace and a lower honor doubleton, or even king and a lower honor doubleton, but ace importantly, is an enormous value in terms of being declarative. You really will gain a trick surprisingly often, because the fact that it's your doubleton is often going to be their lead, and if partner has just anything in that suit, it protects a second trick between the two hands. So, those 6 hands just give you a flavor. We're going to try a couple more a little bit later, but give you a flavor for the way it works. And we think it works well, and it's what? We did that and discussed it in about 25 minutes, 20 minutes. There's no way to do 6 boards in that time. Yes?
What do you use for your program?
Oh, I just do it in Word.
So where do you get the heart and spade and diamond?
Those are just symbols. I can send it to you. I'm sure Stephanie has it too. That's just a symbol. We're kind of lazy, so we have a Word document that we use all the time to cut and paste the symbol into your other documents. Yes?
If you're using Word, all 5 is clubs, all number 6 is spade, all 4 is diamond.
Can you do that again?
All 5 is clubs. Yeah, all 5, number 5. On the, all 4 is diamonds, all 6 is spades, and all 3 is hearts.
I told them we wouldn't use it, but maybe later you could write it in the
Five
whiteboard.
is what?
Well,
I'll do it, don't interrupt, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay.
Interrupt you.
That's okay. No problem. Oh, Henry wants to put in an advertising for the quarterly.
There is an article by Cherie, our editor, for teachers to use a certain font called some, which I think, read the article, you can download the font, and it's very easy to use. It tells you how to do the table, how to put the symbols. It's fantastic.
What is it?
It's in the ABTA quarterly. This month?
On the website.
It's also on the website.
Yeah, it's also on the website. That's right.
Is that this one? Jeff, the-
It's on the website.
Where's, oh, yes. Yes.
I'm looking at hand 2,
Yes.
3.
Yes.
On hand 2, you chose to open spade.
Yes.
And on 3, as Lord, you chose to open 2 clubs.
Correct.
I looked at both hands. Are you choosing 2 clubs on hand 3 because of the higher point count? They both have only 4 losers.
They both, there's a lot of parts of the criteria for opening 2 clubs. I've talked to multiple national tournament directors, and they have many guidelines that those of us who play have never seen. But the general rule of thumb, and I think some of them have actually been published recently, is that in order to open 2 clubs, you need to have a certain number of tricks. I think 16 is what I was told more than not, and at least 4 defensive tricks. So, hand 2 has nothing resembling 4 defensive tricks unless you're defending against spades. So, you can't, so when a beginner opens that hand 2 clubs, they don't understand certain concepts, and you wouldn't necessarily want to penalize them, but you would want to educate them. And a better player would be subject to penalty, because you're trying to stop the opponents from coming into your auction. It wouldn't make so much sense when you're spades, but if this was hearts, you're trying to shut out the opponents from bidding spades over your hearts. So give you that 8 hearts instead of 8 spades. And so when I talk to these directors about these situations, you know, there's an education issue as a director, and I was asking it as a director. And so, but this just isn't the 2 club bid because it doesn't have defensive trick-taking ability, even though it has the tricks. Yes.
Point of fact, it's illegal to cite strong forcing opening.
Yes, absolutely true. It is illegal to cite a strong forcing opening, 2 clubs being the main one. Yes.
What would you prefer, opening bid using the losing count fourth rule of 22? How many?
That's totally your judgment as a bridge player. I personally like the rule of 20 or 22. Oh, sorry. I prefer losing trick count or rule of 20, rule of 22, etc. I understand losing trick count. I've read about it many times. I personally do not find it an improvement. I played bridge for a long time. Some would think successfully. I don't want to change. So I do not tend to. I think in those terms occasionally, like a limit raise is 3 cover cards and all that. I think that way sometimes, but I don't teach that way. I prefer rule of 20, rule of 22 personally.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, yes.
Well, you said it's illegal to play because of her, and that's true. But on can number 2, if you disclose your opening techniques, which you talk about your convention part, it's okay because what the Murray versus Slandering book, he talks about you have a distributional hand with at least 4 winners and then only 4 losers. As long as you disclose on your convention card and you use the 4-4 rule, then you're okay to open that to clubs and you're not in violation of it. So people that are playing that would open that to clubs.
You may be correct, but that would, no director I talked to said that. The question was, or the point was, that if you disclose on your convention card that you open a hand with this, like this, with 9 plus tricks, with less than 4 losers or less, 4 losers or less, you should be okay. I don't believe you are protected. I could be wrong, but with the directors that I talk to, who are some of the finest directors in the country by far, they never mention that at all. And in fact, they mention the opposite.
It's not the standard, that's why you disclose.
I understand, but then we get into alerts and other things too. I don't think the opponents have a responsibility to look at your definition of 2 clubs on your card.
I was told by a director once it was you should alert.
Probably.
Every time.
If you're going to do it, probably. Yes.
We had a talk one time by one of the top directors, I don't remember which one it was.
I think it was Rick. I think it was Rick Clyde.
I think it was Rick.
Okay.
I think it might have been before him. But it was on what you can open 2 clubs with. And he put some really distributional hands up there that it was okay to open 2 clubs with.
Okay. I could be wrong. I mean,
But you've got a mark on your card, could be.
oh sure, of course. Yes.
Well, it wouldn't, this hand would not be called a site by any director.
No, but there's an educational issue that
Yeah.
your goal may not be to open 2 clubs for purposes of showing your strength, but maybe, especially if we change the suits. Okay, I think that's enough on that topic. I don't want to have the rest of the seminar be on opening 2 clubs. Yes?
It's my observation that we have trouble hearing the question, so if you could repeat the question before you answer it, that would help.
I'll try to do that. Sorry, I apologize. Okay, so we're going to skip ahead a little bit and talk a little bit about responders' decisions. So there's a fair amount discussing evaluating your hand as your supporting partner in judging how aggressive to be. So this starts at the bottom of page 6, I believe, if you're interested in following. So I'm a big fan of the idea that added trump create added value for shortness. Now, some people do this differently, but I like a lot of Marty's writings, Freddie Bergen's writings, and he has a small 62-page or so book called Hand Evaluation, Punchsmart's Hand Evaluation. And in that book, there's a little table, which I asked him, and he said no problem at all. That's in the handout section, the green tab. It's the 3rd of the handouts, 4th of the handouts, something like that. Oh no, it's the 1st one. I'm sorry, first one. Anyway, so it talks about how much to increase a doubleton, how much to increase a singleton, etc., for additional trumps. And there's, different people have different ways to do it, but the whole idea is your hand gets better when you have added trump. And I'm sure we've all used, there's a number of them, some in Audrey's book, 6 high card point hand with a singleton, your partner opens a heart, or a spade, I think it was, and you have 6 high card points and you bid 2 spades and your partner invites and you pass. And you give it to every beginning, lower, intermediate player and they all pass. They just can't get past 6 high card points. And so then you try to explain that singleton is very valuable to them, and you ask them how much it's worth, and they say 8 points, and then you say, well, that 4th trump is really valuable to them, and it's really probably closer to 9 points. And then you give them the next hand, you know, a half an hour later, and they do the same thing. But they have to see it in writing as much as possible. So that's why I put that table that Marty has in his book, which I think succinctly points out the pluses and the minuses of many different kinds of situations in terms of added trump, shortness, et cetera, et cetera. So we try to emphasize that with people because even people who have quite a bit of experience often cannot get over that hurdle of trying to evaluate a hand properly in terms of supporting your partner. What I wanted to talk about today, I didn't want to leave you with only things you knew. So some of you may or may not know about a bid that actually many people are playing. They may not have a name for it. I didn't have a name for it when I started playing it. I think it's known by many names, but Spiral 2 No Trump is the one that many people talk about. So on page 8, we start talking about material that tries to show players that there are many hands in bridge that the right bid is to raise partner immediately with 3 trump.
Let me just interrupt for 1 second because I know all of you know that when you teach beginners and intermediates, you tell them when it goes a diamond to heart, you cannot raise that heart suit unless you have 4. And we all know that beginners who have 3 hearts will always raise because they won't have to play the hand. So this is to get the people that are more advanced now to see that that rule of always raising your partner with 4 trumps may not always be true.
So this convention tool treatment has been used for a long time by a lot of experts, and the idea is that there are a lot of ways to offer partner choices of contracts without this, but this is more direct to simply ask partner. Rarely is a 2 no trump bid particularly useful in that context when we've already identified a fit, but once we bid typically a minor, a major, a raise, minor, a spade, two spades, 2 no trump is an artificial bid. Usually, at least invitational values can be quite strong, and it asks partner, what is your raise based upon? And I can't remember whether it was on the bottom of 8 or 9, it's like it's on page 9. And so this has the same kind of steps that August has over a week 2 bid, for those of you that are familiar with that. So the issue is, how many trumps do you have and how good a hand do you feel you have? And so there are many ways to play this. Some people play at a different step, but I think these are the easiest steps to remember. It's not difficult to realize that the cheapest step is only 3 trump and it's a minimum. So I chose to raise you on 3. Usually when you do raise partner on 3, you will have a high honor in the 3 card holding, and you'll have a flaw to certain other rebids. You have a weak suit that you don't want to rebid, you'd rather raise partner with 3 decent trump, and you usually have shortness in the side suit. Most valuable is often shortness in the other major. So singleton or doubleton in the other major, ace-jack third, ace-10 third, whatever, in your partner's major, and partner has a chance now with the 2 no trump bid, alertable, artificial, and the steps are 3 clubs is a 3 card raise with a minimum. 3 diamonds is a 3 card raise with a maximum. 3 hearts is a 4 card raise with a minimum. And 3 spades is a 4 card raise with a maximum. You can add some other tweaks. You know, if you have 4 cards and a maximum single raise, you could jump as a splinter, et cetera, et cetera. You can add some enhancements to it, but those 4 steps really improve your tools, both in game bidding and in slam bidding, and choices of contracts. Oftentimes, you can kind of backtrack and reach 3 no trump when it's likely to be the best spot. And sometimes you can sometimes you accept the fact that you're going to play a 4-3 fit, but at least realize what the basis is. You may not want to hit quite as aggressively, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a tool that I've been somewhat surprised in finding out that some intermediate players that take lessons from me are asking me about it because they already play it, but they don't really get the steps down too well, and they're not quite sure about which hands to raise with 3. But surprisingly often, it's really the right thing to do. I know Mike Lawrence is a big fan of raising on 3 on a lot of things in many of his writings, and many other authors as well. But this tool makes it much more comfortable when it happens, and you as responder are trying to figure out, well, I got Jack 4 of the hearts, am I really going to play 4 hearts on a 4-3 fit? So it allows you to ask, and it's a simple, stepwise response. Yes? Well, whatever an invitational hand is. I say 11, but you can do it on whatever you think is an invite. Yeah, it's 14. It could be 15 with distribution.
Right, okay.
Right. Yes.
Just,
Sorry.
actually, Bob Morse gave us a little lecture on that a couple of years ago.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry. I didn't
That's all
remember.
right. It was
I may not have been there.
That was fun, and I started using it right away. I love it, by the way.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I really like about it is that even when if I want to look for a slam,
Yeah.
I now find out right away whether my partner is minimum or maximum.
Right.
It's a good slam tool.
Yeah.
The only other flaw I found with beginners is that, or advanced beginners, let's call them, they want to use it all the time. So they have to understand that if they have a better bid, then they don't have to raise with 3 right away. They can make their other bid and then go back, or give us a late bid. So there's sort of 2 little things. You have to be kind of careful when you're doing it. I've got a couple of advancing players I play with. One understands completely, the other one bids it every time.
Well, at least they're practicing the steps. Yes, sorry.
What if this is charged?
It's up to you. It's up to you whether you want to use no trump or whether you want to use spades. You know, if you get into the help suit game try issue, if you're going to use 2 spades as the game try with steps, are you going to use 2 no trump as a help suit game try spades? It gets a little cloudy for most players, but I think for ease, for most players, you just use 2 no trump all the time. Obviously, if your partner, if you always have an invitational hand, and your partner's only bid to go past hearts is spades, they're maximum with 4 hearts anyway, so you're going to bid 4 hearts, usually, unless you don't slam. Yes?
And the nice thing about spiral is that it's similar for August.
Yes.
It's the same as-
What was that question?
The question, the point is that the steps are similar to August.
Yes.
You know, bad, good, bad, all the steps. It's a similar idea in terms of what the steps are in terms of meaning to an August response after a week 2 bid. Okay, I think we'd like to try it. So, what I'd like you to do is, you did so well the last time. Don't prove me wrong. If you think you can do it, let's do 13 through 19. It's the second sheet. Change sheet. It's sheet 2 now. Starts on 13. So we're going to do a couple of different types of hands, and then you're going to have a chance to practice spiral 2 no trump. So 13 through 19. Don't forget, your partner is kitty corner. One of you is north, one of you is south. Don't look at your partner's hands. And don't discuss any hands until you're done with all 7 hands. Okay, in the interest of time, let's go through these. So, we're trying to go through 13 through 19, and I should have told you, but it may have been apparent when you started to bid these. We're big fans of help suit game tries and stopper showing game tries when your minor suit is your agreement. So, the first few hands are those types of hands. So, 13, I'm north, and I open 1 spade.
And I am happy to bid just 2 spades, I have my minimum hand, but,
Oh, this is the type of hand I was talking about earlier.
yeah, 2 spades.
That's why it was on my mind. So, if you give this hand to intermediate players, about 60% of them will bid 3 diamonds next. And I keep telling them, how much could partner have in diamonds? And how many losers do you have? Not many. Your losers are primarily in the heart suit. And then a small minority will make game tries in clubs. But you've got to try to understand the source of your losers is usually your weakest second suit, not necessarily your longest one. And so I would bid 3 hearts.
Partner,
Yes, yeah, some people, we play Bergen with some people, some with not, but most of our students don't tend to play Bergen. They're not at that level yet.
oh yeah, Bergen would be a whole different area.
Yeah,
This
it
is
must be a
just
different
standard.
kettle of fish with the south hand.
Yeah, this is just standard. So partner just bid 3 hearts, and he's asking me what I have in hearts. Do I have any help for his losers? I don't count my high card points and say I only have 6, I'm going to bid 3 spades. I say, wow, I have a lot of help for him in hearts. I only have 1 loser. That's what he's asking me for spades.
So then I always emphasize 15 high card points facing 6 high card points, called for game. Because you've identified the good fitting cards in the south hand, both being added trump, which makes it much easier to play the hand, and the singleton card. So 14, I would open 1 spade.
And I certainly have a hand that would naturally go 2 clubs, no problem there.
And I would bid 3 clubs supporting her clubs.
Oh dear. I'm not going to play in 5 clubs, that's for sure. I'd like to play in no trump, but I don't have heart stuff. So once we find a minor suit fit, any new suit by me is showing stoppers, trying to get to no trump. So over, where are we, 3 clubs? Over 3 clubs, I have stoppers and diamonds. I'm going to bid 3 diamonds.
And I have the last suit stopped, so I bid 3 no trump. And so there ensues a lot of discussion. I don't want to go into it too much on this hand, but people don't want to bid 3 now on King X of the last suit stop. But I keep emphasizing you are the declarer. If they choose to leave that suit, it's going to ride around to your king. And it's protected whether the aces went to your right or the aces to your left. And eventually they'll get the hang of it. And then they say, well, what if they don't lead a heart? Of course, we gave them the ace, jack, 10 of spades so that they can easily get an extra trick in spades if they don't lead a heart. So these are, common hands you've probably seen similar, if not the same hands. But the concepts are important. Majors, I have students that say, how do I know? Major is asking, and one of them says, major has an A in it. Minor doesn't have an A in it, whatever. So they have difficulty, but I think the concepts are important to try to reach 3 no trump when your minor suit fits. So the last of my dealer hands is 15, and I would open 1 heart.
And as south, I'm again going to be happy with my bid of 2 clubs.
And I would bid 3 clubs.
Well, this sounds a lot like the last. I know if I bid 3 diamonds, he's going to bid 3 no trump, so I'm going to bid 3 diamonds.
But I don't have good spades, so I'm just going to emphasize good hearts and bid 3 hearts.
Oh.
I have to bid something.
Yeah, right. He doesn't have spades stopped, and I don't have spades stopped, and if he doesn't have spades stopped, we have 2 fast losers in that suit. I have my only 12 high card points, so I think I'll just bid 4 clubs and let him decide.
And I would consider my hand the maximum for this bidding for sure, and I would bid 5 clubs. Without a spade control, there's just no way that you should be bidding 3 no trump, and no way you should be getting past 5 clubs. Okay, 16, you're dealing.
16, south is now going to deal. I have a fine hand. I'm going to open 1 heart, sorry, 1 heart.
And I'm bidding 2 hearts.
Okay. I have 15 high card points, 1 for the light point. Should I pass? But you know what? If partner's points, he hasn't got very many, but if partner's points are in diamonds, I think I'd like to be in game. So I'm going to bid 3 diamonds, asking him about the position that he has in the diamond suit.
And despite me having 9 high card points, not done without intent, you just sign off at 3 hearts. You have the worst hand diamond-wise, so therefore you have to sign off. From this, you can flip suits, the hearts into spades, and get into counter game tries and things like that. Most of our students just can't grasp that idea. They have to be pretty good players to understand a counter game try of fitting the suit in between. But here, your spade is above heart, so you can't do it.
Can you repeat that?
And once a partner bids 3 hearts,
1 heart, 2 hearts, 3 diamonds.
What, on 16?
16. 1 heart, 2 hearts, 3 diamonds by south. Game try, help suit game try in diamonds.
and heart, well, yeah, diamonds.
Diamonds with hearts as a trump suit. And North turns them down
And when
because
North
they have 3
turns me
little
down-
diamonds.
North turns me down, I've got 3 heart losers, and he says, I've got losers also. I am not going on the floor. Once you ask your partner a question, he says, I don't have what you want me to have, don't continue on. Stop.
How do you decide for help suit if you have a partial or you have nothing?
In the green tab, there's a single page on help suit game tries. And on the bottom, it talks about that. I don't remember where I got that, but
Yeah.
it's well done. Okay, 17.
17, I'm a dealer again, I'm going to open 1 spade.
And despite my 6-card suit, I'm bidding 1 no trump.
Okay, so I'm going to tell the partner the rest of my hand, I'm going to bid 2 diamonds.
And I'm going to now mention my suit because my hand had a cap on it. By bidding 1, starting with 1 no trump, so now I'm bidding 2 hearts, natural, long suit.
And I can't panic and run away from this bid. I can't go to no trump, I can't say any suit that I have again, and partner should not be bidding this bid unless he has 6 of them. So I'm passing 2 hearts. Do not run away because you have a singleton.
So this brings up my favorite bridge quote. Misfit hands are best played in the long suit of the weaker hand. Misfit hands are best played in the long suit of the weaker hand. Okay, 18.
18, my dealer again. Okay, 1 diamond.
1 spade.
Well, all my points are concentrated in 2 suits, 1 being my suit and 1 being his. I only have 3 cards, but I think this is the kind of a hand that I should raise to 2 spades. And I'm bidding 2 spades.
So I have a good hand, invitational 11-point hand, a couple of 10s. I don't have a clear help suit type, but if I use spiral, I get a chance to know how many spades she has and how she evaluates her hand, min or max. So I would bid 2 no trump, and that's the spiral 2 no trump idea.
And when he bids 2 no trump, I of course alert, so I'm going to bid 3 diamonds, showing 3, and the best hand that I could have for my previous bidding.
So I'm not worried about the fact she only has 3 spades since I have 5, but I love the idea that she's maximum, so I'm bidding 4 spades.
And
19,
19
I'm the dealer, so I'm opening 1 diamond,
and I'm going to bid 1 heart.
and I'm going to raise to 2 hearts.
Okay, this is good, kind of. The partner has 4 hearts, and if he has 3, it's still good. You know, I want to find out what kind of hand he has, because there could be more than a game here. So over his, what is it, 2 hearts? I bid 2 no trump, and he's going to alert my bid.
And I'm going to bid 3 diamonds. That's a maximum with 3.
And I'm going to alert his bid. You have to alert these 2 bids. And over 3 diamonds, I like the fact that he has what he considers a good hand for his previous bidding. He opened a diamond. I'm not afraid of my Jack-9 type 2-time doubleton because he bid it. Hopefully he'll have something in it. If we lose the first 2 diamond tricks, oh well. Anyway, I'm going to bid 4 no trump over the 3 diamond bid. That is key card for our agreed upon heart suit.
And I'm bidding 5 spades, 2 with the queen.
2 with the queen. Oh wow, he's got my fillers. This is wonderful. 6 hearts.
South could certainly have cupid 4 clubs. It didn't have to jump before, no problem. So hopefully, maybe you learned a little bit, a new thing. It's really a good bit to try, even if you don't want to teach it. I suggest you try playing it. It's really valuable. Yes, Brenda. You could. You could. The question was 1 spade, 2 spades, 2 no. She uses spiral type bits in that case too. And I suppose you could. I never thought about it. I've never seen it mentioned anywhere, but it sounds like a rational thought. Yes?
A lot of people use that sequence for coach game tries. You can't do both.
Yeah.
What was the question? What part is
It's well, I don't want to go down that road because I'm already tipping over my time, and I don't want to take any of Robert's time. So we hope that you found some interesting tips. You should consider, when you're doing bidding lessons, trying bidding sheets. We found them to be quite successful. There's a little bit of resistance the first time, just like the first time people pick up a bid box. I say with bidding boxes, you hate it the first half hour and you love it the rest of your life. Bidding sheets are a little bit the same, but it's very effective in classes because you can cover a lot more material that people are actually participating in than if you use an entire hand and have them play, because you get tied up in the play and the defense, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you all for listening. There's a little break now, it's about 15 minutes. Have a good tournament.
John?